All right, so first I like to start with Mr. Unicorn, right? Mr.
Yes,
Unicorn,
sir.
and your name is Josh, correct?
That is correct.
All right, all right. So I see here that you do claw machines, right?
Yeah, we do arcades in malls across the country.
Okay, all right. So that's very very interesting. So I want to ask you guys, and starting with you, Mr. Unicorn, how did you get started in in that industry? What got you started with doing the claw machines, and like why them?
Wow, that's a great question. I started off with mini claws a long, long time ago. I think my first one went into a Mexican restaurant, and I think I bought the cheapest mini claw in the market. And for the first 8 weeks, I think it was broken. So you kind of learn how to repair your own stuff when you buy from an unscrupulous third party. That's just kind of selling it on the side, and there's no customer support. And by the time I had the thing working properly, I learned about all the errors and all the workings of it. And it kind of just grew from there, from one little Mexican restaurant with a little 12-inch mini claw up to, we've got 3 arcades open now, and we're opening 4 more in the next 3 months. And that's only since July or I'm sorry, June of 24. So it's been almost 2 years. We've gone from a single mini claw machine to I have about 140 or 150 machines at this point.
Okay. So you have 140 machines or so? And is that
Yeah,
so
roughly.
okay. So and I heard you say arcade. So are you setting them up in different locations? Or are you mainly just doing the arcades like where you're putting them all in the same spots?
So we still have a little bit of a vestige of our route left. It's something we're slowly winding down. I Most of what I kept was people that I enjoy working with out in boba shops and ice cream shops and stuff like that. If I liked the person, I left the machines there. So I've got maybe 10 different locations outside of my malls that have 1 or 2 machines each. Actually, most of them have 2 machines at this point. I've just kind of upgraded them. And then in the arcades, we have anywhere from, I think my smallest arcade has 30 to 45 machines in each one of the arcades.
Okay. All right. That's super interesting. I want to get back to that in a second. And we also have Andy on from candymachines.com. So Andy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and and what your website offers?
Sure. So we're traditionally rooted in bulk vending. About 5 or 6 years ago, we've kind of dipped our toe into the amusement space. Now we sell thousands of machines a year on the amusement side, primarily on the mini crane, and we're really geared towards the street operator. But this year, as we can, our operators like Joshua continue to grow, we're seeing these trends of you know operators wanting to consolidate locations and put their machines all in one place. And the arcade is definitely a rising trend. So we'll be supporting that as well. But yeah, it's we're set up to support this ecosystem. We pride ourselves on high quality machines, high quality service, and try to do support the industry as best we can.
I got you. I got you. And I want to say I love what both of you guys are doing. Candymachines.com, I've definitely used that website probably at least once or twice. I believe if I'm not mistaken, I believe I brought a wizard. I believe is that the name of the big gumball machine that has it goes down like that's a
Spiral.
wizard. Yeah, I
Correct.
believe I
Correct.
got a
Yeah,
wizard from you.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and those are great machines.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I got my start in the vending machine
Yeah.
industry. I started with gumball machines. I love the idea of the claw machines. But I never really got into that. And I do want to ask one question I have for you, Mr. Unicorn, is how did you get the locations for those claw machines? Because I found this, with the vending machines and the gumball machines, there's a lot of places where you can, put those machines. Whereas though with the claw machines, it's at least from my experience, it was like, a little more narrow of the type of location where you could put those. How do you get the location for those? And then like what's the perfect type of location for like one of those machines?
The double-edged sword there. When it comes for locations, for a while I had used a locator. The problem with a locator is, they when they're doing it by phone, they don't really have the measurement of success that the site's going to have. They can look at Google reviews and stuff like that, but it doesn't really give them the big picture. So I used them for about 20 locations, I would say. Out of those 20, two were good. So, it cost me $4,000 to get two good locations at the end of the day that made more than $35 a month. So after that, I've actually got a video on my YouTube channel. I would just go out and start pitching it, and to reference what you're saying, mini claws are definitely the way to get your foot in the door. You go and you pitch 12 by 12 spot on the floor that can make them a few $100s a month sometimes. I always stay honest. There's a lot of companies out there that'll promise the world, but if you tell them you're going to make $1,000 a month and then you give them a check for $5 at the end of the month, nobody's going to love you, right?
Right.
So you just set a realistic goal when you're walking in. You're going to say, hey, I'm going to take this 12 by 12 space on the floor. Most people, I give them a check for $100 to $300 a month, and they're pretty happy. That's about 50% of the profit, roughly, after you subtract your plush costs and your cost for the Nyax or the cantaloupe, stuff like that. But going just door to door, that's it. You have to walk into a location like you already own that location. And that is something that the business owners can respect versus kind of a sheepish, can I do this? Do you mind if I do this? Just, hey, I'm going to make you $200 to $300 a month. We're going to take up 12 inches of your floor space. I already have a plug right here that I see that'd be a perfect spot for it. Can we try it out for a month? I'll guarantee you $100 in income this month, and I'll just give you a $100 bill of the day, deliver the machine. How would that work for you?
Okay.
Just go in like you own the place, and you'll end up owning the place.
What type of places are you targeting? So is it like barber shops, or I know I've seen those in like Walmarts and different places like that. Is there a particular type of place that you're looking for when it comes to placing those claw machines?
I mean, ice cream shops are number one, but you gotta remember, in certain parts of the country, an ice cream shop's only gonna be open, 6 months of the year, 8 months of the year. So you got your hot dog stands. Any locally owned independent business is gonna be your main target, because $200 to somebody who pays $3,000 in rent, they're going to say, hey, that covers a good portion of my rent. It's only taking up 12 inches. And so that's where the bread and butter of the industry is. And that's what the mini claws are really good for. I would not leave a mini claw on a location that's successful. If a mini claw is doing $400 a month, there's no reason to leave it there. We'll upgrade to a more visible claw as long as they have space. And the profit when I go from a mini claw to a 31-inch claw machine, I don't know if you can see it behind me there, but those guys, they can easily make $800 a month. That's where the money's at.
Okay, so jumping back over to Andy, so in your space, right? We're doing the candy machines, which is again where I got started. A lot of people now don't use coins as much. So is the candy business, or the candy machines evolving to keep up with the times? Do they
Yes.
have like the card readers on them, or how are they, keeping up with everything?
Yeah. That's definitely the trend. And so, we're converting most of our machines into accept credit card and dollar bills. We have machines of all types and trying to build out, more and more versions of those. I think, still the early days in that endeavor. We've kind of got some rudimentary prototypes basically, but we have hundreds of on the street right now. And my next endeavor is to really make those more beautiful, more reliable, more, retail friendly, more attractive. Have built already has proven that absolutely people aren't carrying cash and coin hardly anymore. And the moment that you put a machine that does accept card and bills for an operator, your revenue is immediately increased just because of that thing alone. In addition to that, one of the things that we're trying to do as a manufacturer is to really drive the market upwards. If we're all stuck on a quarter mechanism, then that's not a lot of room for growth, especially within the age of inflation. So we know that we've got to have digitized payments and modern payments, and that's a really big focus of what we're doing.
Okay. I mean, I love it. I think vending machines, the full size, snack soda machines, I think they pretty much did the same thing. I think they only started with coin mechanisms, and then as the times went on, they just added more stuff. So that's why I was asking. And in terms of, somebody just getting started in the business, I love the idea of starting with the the gumball machines or anything smaller like that, even the claw machines, because it's a smaller footprint. Right?
Yeah.
Smaller footprint, easier to move those machines around. I used to actually drive around with the gumball machines in my car, pitching these things, to try to get them in the different like pizza shops and places like that. What would you say if, to somebody looking to get started in that industry, and I'm gonna ask you the same thing, Mr. Unicorn. What would you say would be the best type of gumball machine to start with if they're looking to get started in the game?
I'll try to play a little bit off of what Josh has already said. Is that the small footprint? Whether it's a gumball machine or a claw machine, the small footprint is your shoehorn into a location. For an operator like yourself, a street operator that might be a small operator to start and looking to get started, you're not invested in trucks and vans and everything to move heavy equipment, but you can absolutely put a gumball machine, and you can absolutely put a mini claw machine in the back of your trunk. Kind of how the mini crane has really become so popular is that it can go anywhere, but it makes it a street operator. It's very transportable. So it's best of both worlds, but also it's enough room to put 3 payment systems in that. And so we're about 6 or 7 years into this market now with the mini cranes accepting credit card bills and coins. And we're just taking that runway and kind of reverse engineering our bulk machines as well. So now we've got full racks. If you're familiar with bulk vending, with gumballs and toy capsule machines, you see that rack in front of a grocery store that, usually like 7 or 9 machines. And now we have those machines, with that are digitized. Just essentially, you can basically put a credit card bill in there and turn any of those machines. I think the big thing is like you eventually find your sweet spot. You might test a few things out, but I think I see, just like Joshua, the best operators are going to find that machine in that mix that's going to really fit their service that they're providing. And then standardization is the key to scales. The ones that have hundreds of machines, they're typically running all the same machine for the most part. There's definitely more. But then you also have arcade operators that just do thousands of machines, and they do every machine. So there's a little bit of a balance there. But I think eventually you have to determine what kind of vending that you're into. On the flip side, and Joshua can attest to this, I'm an advocate that this is not a machine industry. This is a location industry. So if you're good at finding locations, it's about serving that location, right? And so your foot in the door might be a mini crane, or it might be an honor box, or it might be a triple head gumball and candy machine. But once you have that foot in the door, it's about maximizing that opportunity, right? Hey, I see you got this, wall space over on the side. Have you thought about putting 3 or 4 amusement machines on the side? And do you need a vending machine in the back? Do you need a gumball machine in the front? That might be a little too much for one operator, but the sentiment's the same. How can I maximize this opportunity? And Joshua spoke to that. Like he might start with a mini crane, but if it's maximize that output, he's going to put a larger machine in there or multiple machines.
Okay. So how much do they cost? That's what so if somebody's looking to get started, how much do there's a typical, let's say on the cheaper end, and then on the most expensive end, like, for the gumball machines and the mini cranes, what's the startup cost for something,
Yeah,
like that?
gumball machines are a few $100. Crane machines are about $1,000 to $3,000 on our side. There's definitely, Joshua will attest to this, that there's definitely more and more sourcing opportunities now, more than ever. But when you compare it to other industries, ATM industries, vending industries, this amusement side, the ROI is incredible. Regardless if you're buying a machine for $300 or $3,000, the ROI is miles ahead of these other industries. Coming from the Cantaloupe University show and talking to some other full line vendors, snack and sodas, like their ROI expectations are 18 months, right? And I'll let Joshua kind of speak to his ROI. It's in our industry, it can be weeks, or it could be a fraction of those months. So.
No. I'm keeping it all in house at this point. I don't see us ever going with that model. So we're gonna use a series of operators. It's just a lot of route runners will take care of it. So we're looking at going to between 45 and 50 in the next 24 months. Think about more like a Dave and Buster's, right? You wouldn't have your independent operators. You hire local people to take care of it, local managers for local areas. It's basically going to be like that, more of a corporate structure than it would be for a franchise. Yeah.
All right. So I want to piggyback off of what Andy said. So I can attest personally to ROI only on the gumball side. The return on investment with a gumball it was crazy when I was doing it. That's one of the things I really loved about that particular business model. I think the gumball cost maybe at that time it was maybe 3 cents per gumball, something like that, and I was charging 25 cents at that time. It was 25 cent, to purchase the gumball, 50 cent or something like that. But, that return on investment was phenomenal. Like, comparing that to the vending that I do now, the vending is, bigger money, but the bigger return on investment for sure is the gumballs and the candy when I was doing that. So Andy, I know you're selling the plushies, right? Are they called plushies? I think they're called plushies.
We do a little bit of that, yes.
And Mr. Unicorn, you're selling the plushies, right? In terms of out of the claw machines.
We would consider that vending, essentially. That's what a claw machine is at the end of the day, is you're providing
Right.
a
You know what I'm
product
saying?
for a
But the
price,
things
but
in
you're also
the things
providing a certain
inside
amount
the
of
machines are,
entertainment.
are plushies, or are you selling like different types of products?
It can be literally anything. And every market's going to be different. It can be everything from, rubber ducks to tiny little plush to, giant plush. Oh goodness.
I
I
think in
think
Asia
one
they
of the big things,
in Asia they vend goldfish and lobsters as well.
yeah, crazy stuff. But I think one of the big things for us has just been brand recognition. A Pac-Man will get more, 10 times more play than your little Yeti, I get that sloth. So,
Gotcha.
you know, and that's one of the important things is getting good licensed plush. And I'm happy to hear the other day that Toy Factory, one of the big suppliers for me, is getting into the size 0, which is that's your upper limit of your mini claws. But you got to give somebody something to play for. Just because a machine is there and it's got stuff in it. You know, you load it up with just random junk and nobody's gonna play the game. You gotta give them something that they want. And beyond that, you have to read the market, like you're vending anything. You're not gonna put a vending machine in a diabetic clinic and fill it with candy bars, right?
Right. Right.
It just
You
just
could. You
doesn't
just want
make
to make
any
no money.
sense. You can't make no money, or you're gonna kill people. One of those two.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I have two questions for you. So
Yeah.
you bringing up that is a very good point. So I do want to. I would like to know. I'm pretty sure other people would like to know too. What's your top selling product? And also like, what does your return on investment look like for the items that you're selling?
Oh boy, that's difficult because every market is so different. So we've got 3 arcades spread across. If you were to drive from the first to the second to the third, it would take you. It's a good 6.5 hour drive. The next one's 7 hours up the road. Our geographic area is huge, and every single one of them is something different. Here in the arcade that I'm sitting in right now, I'm actually down in Daytona, Florida. The biggest thing here has been Pusheen, which isn't a brand you really see that much anymore. It's a little gray cat, and here he's just holding a popsicle or a pretzel, and they're going ballistic for it. I've got places. I've got my place out in Tallahassee. Number one thing there is small plush. I still have mini claw machines, and because I don't have them on the route anymore, I've been using them in the arcades. These guys are going faster than Mario. I can't keep these things from between visits. I can't keep them inside the claw machines. They just wipe them out. And it's everything from hamsters and little outfits, little bear outfits. Like I've got my bear outfit on now. If I was a hamster, everybody'd be trying to win me. So, there's even when you get to the size that we are, and I'm not that big. I'm not a Dave and Buster's. I don't have an inflated ego or anything like that. But when you start to grow, you never forget your roots because those roots still impact your day-to-day business. And at the end of the day, it is about taking care of the customers. And one of the nice things about this little guy here is, I might pay 65 cents for this little guy, right? So when a kid plays 3 times, they're probably going to win one unless they're really, really bad at the game. Versus our Pac-Man friend here, I believe I think he's about $3.50. So you're at $1 a play, you're gonna be playing for the Pac-Man about 12 times. So you try to keep your plush cost somewhere around 35 to 40% of your gross. And at the end of the day, that gives you for a street operator, it gives you a good 20 to 25% profit margin after you've paid your location. Here in an arcade, it's 10 to 15% after you've paid your enormous rents, quite intimidating rents.
I think the topic was about the morality or like the skill versus gambling. Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, skill games are what we sell, right? There are definitely different states that have different regulations. There's limitations across state to state on the value of the prizes and the type of gameplay that's permitted. So definitely check your local laws and regulations on that. But essentially, yeah, there's some skill and ratio play at play here. You can dial this in as an operator to, I wouldn't say guarantee, but to optimize your win ratios so that you are generating an ROI on the prices that you put in there. There's a lot of variances on a claw machine that go into it. One from the ratios that win percentages, but also the claw strengths are a big thing in there, and that's part of an operator's setup for every different toy that they put in there. And then along from the claw machines, there's all these varying sorts of prize machines. There have been some legal precedents on certain prize machines that had a bad payout or a bad consumer experience. And I think the industry is trying to, adjust to those requirements, going forward.
I think a big thing for me in my arcade, we switch a lot of plush around in machines, as you might imagine. I think the last time that I switched plush here, usually I give myself a good 30 minutes on a machine. I'll do somewhere around 200 plays because I'm going for a win ratio without it being, I go for predominant skill with a fraction of varying strength that's not so visible in some areas, and then sometimes we just go with pure skill. Just you want to set your strength on your claw so that it can be grabbed, but not by everybody every time. And there's a fine balance to that without doing it like a straight up rigging of the game to pay on pay number 10. In fact, a lot of my new machines, they literally have a skill level set, so it's more friendly for an operator to come along and say, hey, this guy right here, this is $3. So we're going to put it on level 3, and then the settings are already in the background at level 3. It's still on a it's paying out every few times, but it's not paying out every time, and it's not a fixed ratio. It's what you really want to avoid is you want to avoid a straight up rigging of the game, and that's what we try for. We say every game is winnable under the right circumstances, but as the game is not won, the strength will increase as time goes on in an effort to give you the prize at the end of the day.
And Joshua will affirm, there's a big saying in our industry that winners make players. So if you're not allowing for wins, then people aren't going to play your game.
Yeah, I think there is a certain morality to that too. That's why I'm always hesitant on cutting games, because the games where you have to cut the string to win the prize, especially, it's one thing if you're putting a $10 teddy bear in there. It's another altogether if you've got a PlayStation, because there's just so many people, and you're giving them the false illusion of, hey, you can win this PlayStation. Just let's try it. But if you put that in there 10 minutes ago, they're not winning it. The 10th guy's not going to win it. The 20th guy's not going to win it. As Andy said, players are winners. And I've got one giant cutter machine. We're actually completely redoing how we operate the machine. We're going to very inexpensive plush, so a lot of people can win a lot of times, and we just refill it constantly. Instead of your 12,000th person winning the PlayStation with a gold bar on top of it, right? That's what we're trying to avoid. So we want it to be fair and winnable, and I think that works out best for the customer to just. And that's another thing that we've been doing in the arcades is we shift to the smaller prize to give away more, and people tend to enjoy that better.
All right, all right. So Andy, I would like to get back to you for a second, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Unicorn the same thing. So why did you get started, in the candy machine business? Like, what made you get started in that particular business?
Well, I've been an online entrepreneur for most of my career, and I was semi-retired when I had kids, and then looking for a business to buy. The truth is, I've got, I'm kind of fresh into this industry, but there's a lot that overlaps my skill set, and so it ticked a lot of boxes on us. So it was kind of, I looked at this industry as an opportunity with my young kids to spark joy, in communities across the country. There's a lot less boring businesses out there, or a lot more boring businesses, I should say. And it's fun. It's games and it's gumballs. So that attracted me to it. But it's a small niche. There's no secrets in this industry. But, what I do appreciate about it is that we're all trying to kind of build businesses of our own. That's something that I've done. And that's something I get joy out in, seeing our customers and operators thrive and kind of, build livelihoods for themselves. Yeah. So, there's a lot of value, in what we do.
Okay, okay. Great, great. What about yourself, Mr. Unicorn? What made you get started in that particular business? Like, why claw machines?
Well, I've been in arcades since I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. Started out on pinball games and stuff like that. Prize redemption, trade it in. Trade in your tickets, get the prize. We started off on stuff like that. I think my claim to fame was getting a portable television that was about this big from Lakemont Park in Pennsylvania. I won it at their arcade in there. And, and I've always been into plush toys. I hate to admit it, but every case of plush, I usually find my favorite and I'll put it on my shelf in my office at the house. And, you know, there's a certain amount when you're a person like me that you just love the industry, you love the toys, you love the amusements portion of the business. You got to be careful because you're not your own customer. You always have to remember that at the end of the day. It's like if you're into gumballs and you like the blue gumballs, you don't just buy blue gumballs, right? You buy what the people want. And, I have to control myself a little bit on that. I allow myself one case of plush a month that I got for me. Latest one was the Fraggle Rocks. Nobody will play for them. I have them in my bedroom. I have them in my office, but it's just a love of toys, a love of bringing happiness to kids when they get into the arcade and they take their little sloth home. It's just at the end of the day, having something physical and tangible in your hand that you're taking home with you is much better than any other kind of entertainment in my opinion. You see, I've played Halo before, but at the end of the day, Halo it's just scores on a computer, right? I've got a Pac-Man here that I won from the arcade. That's way beyond any score on Halo.
Yeah, definitely
And
brings
that's that,
happiness.
you know.
Definitely brings happiness. And I want to focus on the point that you just made because I feel like that's important, to anybody that's just getting started in the business. Because I did the same thing. I made the same mistake when I was getting started with the vending machines. I filled that first vending machine with everything that I liked. So I was walking through Sam's Club like, oh, these are good. That's good. That's good. So I think a lot of people fall victim to kind of just going off of what they like and not really focusing on the customer. Because one day I was walking up to that machine and and I was stocking it with everything I feel like is good and the sales are not bad. So, I'm not thinking anything's wrong. And they're asking for stuff. And I'm like, why? I think one of the things was like, it's like, chili Fritos. I remember that one in particular was chili Fritos, and this was like 10 years ago. And I'm like, why would anybody want chili Fritos? Those things are horrible. Like even peanut M&Ms. I hate peanut M&Ms. They sell like crazy. Like, and I don't understand why. But I think that's super important for anybody that's looking to get started because I know we have a lot of listeners that's going to be new and trying to get things started. So, definitely focus on your customer. Don't just think about what you like. Focus on that.
Another thing too, and Joshua, I think is probably the best person to speak to this. Over the last year, one of the things that I've seen is a divergence in the market. There's with the tariffs, there's a big race, to kind of find more affordable machines, and what that's caused is more competition among Chinese factories, and you can get a crane for $250 now. So I think that for our industry is, talking about the effects of that, like what that does to the industry and like the risk reward type thing. We're just seeing, I think what Joshua was trying to do is, elevate the experience. And that's something that we advocate for is to not just race to the bottom and provide cheap experiences, but to really think about the experience overall so that we don't sour the market basically, it's something that we're really sensitive about. We want to make sure that there's longevity for all of our operators, and we kind of bring out the best in the industry.
Okay. Okay. So, Josh, to ask you that question, why did you make the decision to go from, route based to focus more on the, just the arcade style, business model?
You're not gonna like my answer. You're not gonna like it.
All right.
I'll tell you, but you won't want to put it on your podcast. Oh my goodness. The individuals who own some of these ice cream shops, Mexican restaurants are the most narcissistic, full of themselves individuals in the world. At the end of the day, I would just get sick of someone. Okay, it's doing $500 a month, but I don't like your attitude. I'm taking my machine with me because you know what? It's like my first location. I gave it up because I went in to service the machine, did $400 a month. Okay, great. Go in, take out his chair, leave it with his people. He was so angry because he didn't watch me take the dollar bills out of the machine and count it himself. I said, you know what? I'm just taking my machine. You can find somebody else. Please find somebody else because it's not worth the frustration. And the thing with the arcades is when I walk into the mall, you know, this is all the mall cares about, right? As long as I'm not giving the mall a bad image, all the mall wants at the end of the day is their dollar, right? I don't get the drama, I don't get the attitudes, I don't get the My customer lost a quarter in there yesterday, and I had to give it to him out of my till. That's why I went to the arcades, because I'm not great with people to begin with. You know, I'm a very high functioning person with Asperger's. So for me to deal with 55 different attitudes every single week, it's too much. It's too much. That's why, like I said originally, I kept the people that I like, because those are the people that I want to deal with. And the mall is just a faceless corporation that's chasing the dollar. And they're happy as long as I am making them the dollar, and that's what they're at.
I think that's a
Well,
great
Josh,
testimony to like. I think it's a great testimony that as you grow, you're going to find all operators are going to find their sweet spot, whether it's the type of location, the type of machine, the type of plush, the type of item that they want to vend. I think you should find your sweet spot, and when you do, you catch fire, and that's where you scale and you kind of lean into your strengths. So I think tip my hat to Joshua for doing that. I think he's caught a good trend and he's ready to grow.
and Josh, speaking of what you just said, I thought I was the only one because I feel the exact same way that you feel. If it's somebody that I do not like dealing with, if it's not a stellar location, hey, I'll sell this machine and I'll keep on moving. And I
Yep.
also had the situation where it was a pizza shop, a pizza shop. I was putting the candy machines, and the guy wanted to count the coins with me. At this point I had already maybe 15 of these things. I got to the point where I had like 20 something before I started doing the vending machines. And I'm like, I've never counted the coins with anyone, so I'm definitely not counting the coins with you. If I have to count these coins with you for you to believe how much I should be paying you in commission, I'm just not going to do it. I'll take the machine out because I'm not about to sit here and count quarters. And mind you, I didn't even count the quarters by hand. I would dump them in the little thing, like in the coin counter. And so no, I'm not doing that. So I feel you on that one. I feel you on. Okay. So
Yeah,
Andy, what makes candy machines different than other places where people can go and buy like you?
well, I think I mentioned it briefly in the earlier moments of the podcast is that we're solely dedicated on serving the street operator, and so everything that we do is to really kind of build that ecosystem. One, to serve and fill the tech gap. We've brought NIAX to this industry. We brought Cantaloupe this year into this industry, and I think that's a healthy thing for us to have multiple options. And now we're going to see on the payment side more and more service providers come to market, which is great, I think. But on the software side, we're continuing to innovate. One of the things that we've got is a route management piece of software that helps our operators track their routes from location to location. We've got some big upgrades coming this year. One is the automation of that information. Now it's not just a manual ledger. You can pull in your data dynamically through your NIAX integration. We'll be integrating into Cantaloupe as well. And the second one is, a direct integration into our machines. That's something we've been working on for about a year or so. And this is I feel is going to be industry changing. But we're going to have two-way communication with our machines so that one, we can pull the information out that agnostic of your payment provider. So if you want to have information on your machines dynamically on your app, we'll be able to provide that from a whole route management perspective. But you also be able to control that machine. Jonathan can tell you on a route that you might get a call. It's like, hey, the machine's turned off, or it might be working off. So you can now reboot the machines from your.
All right. So can you expand on I know you said so you got NIAX into the industry. And what do you mean by that? Just for for anybody that might be
Well,
wondering.
this
I,
was
I understand what you're saying, but
definitely
just
before my time, but the previous owner had worked directly with NIAX on developing their Pulse integration into the machines. As we heard before, is that the vending side relies on MDB protocol, and on the amusement side, we rely on a Pulse. So essentially, like it's like Morse code coming through, and we're taking those pulses off of the board, and we're interpreting that into either credits played, win coming through your price shoot, and we're analyzing that data to provide rich analytics on your phone. We are now taking that a step further and having a direct communication into the board so that you're not relying on this old Morse code technology. Now you have full access into the whole key performances of your machine.
let's go with that. So, Mr. Unicorn, where would you like to see the industry go from here as an operator?
I think one of the biggest things in our industry is stagnation. We need some real innovation like we've seen in the vending space. It was only maybe 2 or 3 years ago they started coming out with the smart coolers, and we were all skeptical at first on how that was going to work out. Now that we've had some time with them and they've become a fabulous technology, And I'd like to see something like that in the amusement space because you get a lot of stagnation as time goes on. A lot of companies settle in. They sell product A and product A keeps selling. So they keep selling product A, but they're not looking at the big picture of the BCD. Everybody makes the little claw that goes down, grabs the toy and come up. But what can we do different? What can we change to make that experience more interactive for the person that's operating the machine? What can we do to enhance the amusement side, not just the vending side of claw machines? I think there's some stuff in the pipeline. I'm really hopeful. I've got some inside baseball on Las Vegas having some new products, but there is a large amount of stagnation. I'm not going to be the best friend to Niax. Their device has been out there for over 4 years now. The VPOS, the touchscreen, the interface that the customers have with it. I've got videos of people tapping the Niax again and again and again to try to make their selection. They don't realize that the Niax is not that intuitive. You have to press and hold to make your selection. Niax is stagnated. That's why we're trying Cantaloupe now for amusement. The interface seems a little more intuitive, and as time goes on, they seem to be really picking it up. Another thing with Niax, you can't use it on some of your traditional games. I tried to connect it to my roller coaster, and it was causing the Typhoon to just shut off. And the problem is it was taking the grounds, and there's no separate ground for the pulse signal, and it was just put the entire game into error mode, where the Cantaloupe actually has a dedicated circuit for the pulse mechanism. And I think stagnation is the biggest enemy of any supplier. And there is a certain amount of Chinese innovation, but they're long term they're known for stealing other people's technology in a very, very heavy sense. And you've got a lot of manufacturers now on the market making claw machines. And I give a lot of respect to the companies that are using contract style manufacturing, where instead of putting their claw machines into the public market and you see it on Alibaba 2 months later with the same technology, they're making it in-house. I can't just go out the next day and buy it. There's a lot of manufacturers out there, and I don't know how in depth we should go with this, but there are a lot of Chinese companies that have a syndicate here in America, and they're selling game A for $5,000 here in the States, where I can go import it directly from China for $500 and it comes out of the same factory. And that's what you really have to be careful with when you're dealing with the Chinese machines, because you'll get a lot of IP theft, a lot of patents that are just blatantly violated by the Chinese that an American side company really would just go out of business. I think Kiosoft's the famous example right now. They were coming out with readers and they were coming out with technology in arcades. They were blatantly violating the patents of a company called PayRange. And they violated it so hard that they looked at the lawsuit and said, well, that's it. We're out of business. And PayRange took them over now. So I hope we don't get too much consolidation. I know the founder of Candy Machines, Kevin, came out with his own pay system. I haven't taken a look at it yet. Then we have FEC FIN, which is FEC Financial. I've actually got their units on demo inside my arcade right now, and we're working through a good interface with them. So that's at least 5 different companies that are out there right now making payment systems for Pulse, for routes, and for claws. And I think that sort of innovation and the multifaceted approach and the many manufacturers with many new ideas for us all to try. I think that's really where the industry needs to go and keep going, always pushing forward, never stagnating in what they're doing. And I think that's going to help everybody from the operators on up to the manufacturers, realistically.
All right. So Andy, I know Josh said a lot there. Do you have any thoughts on, anything that he was saying?
Sure. He's right. There definitely needs to be more innovation in this space. And I think we are starting to see that. We're all kind of fighting for, a small pond of market here, but that should allow for a lot of competition and some innovation. There's definitely, the temptation to just rush and go find a cheaper machine. And so that's kind of a symptom of the rinse and repeat and a watered down effect of some of these higher quality machines. But, we're dedicated to kind of innovate. We're going to bring remote technology. We're trying to create new games on our side. And I know other vendors are doing the same. But ultimately, you're going to find, some uniqueness there. We're seeing a lot, even on the claw machine side, we're going to start bringing in true skill games. So there's no win ratios. It's, you have to swing that crane and actually have to grab that thing and pull it in. It's really, going to be new to the US market. So there's going to be some, market education around that. That's going to be necessary, but that's one side of that. That's possible. There's tons of little gameplay that you can do, especially in a clawcade like Mr. Unicorn runs. We're seeing different types of gameplay in a claw that you can do with little spinners and little capsules running around. There's a lot of innovation and to keep things fun and fresh. I like where we're heading, but yes, it's a Me Too world. Everyone sees the YouTube videos and just tries to rinse and repeat. We do see a lot of the younger millennial customers that they want something easy, and they're promised an easy ROI on this industry, and they don't really want to put forth the effort. And it's the people that put forth the effort that's gonna really stand out. So branding your machines, creating a unique experience is what I really advocate for. I really would love to see our opportunity like a higher luxury experience in this industry. I think that's really ripe right now, and we're determined to kind of bring something like that to market.
Okay, so when you say a higher luxury experience, what does that look like to you?
Yeah. So if you just think about the toys that are in these machines, if you go to any of our trade shows, it all kind of looks the same at the end of the day. It's toys and plush. But what does, and I don't have, the perfect answer, but in theory, like we want to drive the transaction from a quarter mechanism to $1 to $5 to $20 to $50. What would a $50 per play claw machine experience look like? And that's something to think through. And it's an extreme example, but that's the type of luxury, type of experience we're seeing, I'm trying to pursue.
And that makes sense. That makes sense. It was great having both of you guys on. I really learned a lot personally. Like I said in the beginning, I'm a big fan of the claw machines. I'm a fan of the candy machines, and I love the industry, man. Like and hopefully we do continue to innovate. You guys. Well, I say you guys continue to innovate and make the industry better, and so it can continue to grow. Uh, so thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure having you guys as guests, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you,
Thank you
Kashief.
very much for having me.